Welcome back to Marathon Phoenix Commentary. This is episode 12 about the level Stone Temple Pilates. My name is Ryoko TK, and thanks for coming back. As opposed to this level that I'm wrapping up right here, this is a change of seasons. The next level, Stone Temple Pilates, is a lot more open-ended. It's got a handful of steps that you have to take, and so it actually... It spreads out a little more. It's a decent change of pace from the last level. This is chronologically one of the last maps that I made for Phoenix, the first new map that I made for the special edition, and its role in the plot is mostly just to, it's sort of just a continuation of the last level. Basically, your objective here is that you're trying to reach the exit teleporter, and that teleporter is protected by several doors that you have to open. Actually, it's technically protected by one door that you have to open, but that door is timed. So you have to open several other doors so you can make it to that first door in time. Just a spin on the usual concept of find a bunch of doors to unlock. And mostly I just went for... this level exists most kind of as like filler almost, and I just sort of attempted to go for stylistic decisions that you haven't really seen that often, or at all, at least in Phoenix. The first thing is that this is your first encounter, so to speak, with bottomless pits of death that aren't, lava pits. It's pretty... it's not something that can be done really in the vanilla engine. It takes some scripting in order to really do right, and it helps me kind of get this sort of high elevation setting, sort of like a mountainside or something like that. And this level doesn't really feature them as like a hazard. There's really no situations where you're jumping over pits of death here, but it just sort of gives it that backdrop. And to me, it kind of contextualizes, I guess, the rest of the level. So rather than this being in this area, rather than it being like set in a canyon or something like that, it's set near the top of a mountain. So that's kind of cool to me. And then, of course, you've seen it already. This level brings back the renegade humans, enemies that, as I've said before, I actually really do enjoy them. So this level's kind of divided up into a handful of different areas. So it's and it's very it's a lot more set piece driven than some of my other levels, and it's sort of done that way by design. As you can see, it's a lot of long areas like this one, and it's meant to give the crossbow a good chance to shine here. Kind of helps make it a sort of a long-range game, and there's a lot of sections where you can't go back to save, so it's a level where you have to play kind of carefully, just because you don't always have a way out. What we're fighting here is a mother of all cyborgs. This is one of my favorite new enemies from Phoenix, and actually it's like the mother of all hunters. This is actually a very old enemy, and I needed an enemy. Well, I needed to sort of modernize or sort of update, I guess, the mother of all cyborgs enemy, because it's probably the most terribly boring enemy in vanilla Marathon. How the cyborg works basically is it will shoot a bouncy grenade that's like a tracking grenade. It seeks you out. Not that hard to avoid because it travels fairly slowly. And if you get closer to it, it also has like a flamethrower attack. It's a very non-threatening enemy, but it has far too much health for its own good. So they're pretty unpleasant to fight, to be honest. And I had to come up with a way to make it more threatening. So, of course, it does that same burst attack that a lot of other enemies do, the sort of rapid-fire grenade attack. but then it also shoots off the rockets. And it's a fun enemy to fight, at least in my book, because if you screw up, you take tons and tons of damage, but it's relatively easy to avoid it. So it's unlike, say, the Red Defenders, where those shots travel fairly quickly and they attack pretty frequently. And of course, they can fly. In this one, you just have to have your wits about you, and you can usually beat those mother of all cyborgs unscathed. You saw there that red switch. The first door is down. There's 2 more to go. One thing I like about this level is sort of how the elevation changes throughout the course of your journey through the level. There's a lot of ups and downs, but in a way that sort of feels natural, I guess. Almost a lot of the rocks, the rocky areas and sort of the ledges and stuff, you do eventually end up passing along. It's not just they're not just like cordoning off one part of the level from another. Well, they do that, but they are also part of the level itself. And so, like this area actually is a pretty good example. All these enforcers and bobs standing on the ledge, and they have the height advantage on you. But I think it's just kind of done in a way that I like it. And this is really the only part of the level where the bottomless pit threatens you, because if you take the wrong step, you're trying to get a beat on these guys, you'll fall to your death. And we're actually coming up to one of my favorite set pieces right here too. So I do like this level. It's just sort of a shooting gallery. But one where I got to kind of play with some ideas that I don't really get a lot of. This part right here, I actually kind of like this. This little rock that I'm standing behind, it's done this way on purpose. Enemies in Marathon will shoot you if they can see you, and they will always shoot directly at you. But what that means is, they can quote unquote see you through any rocks, so long as it's not a complete wall. So like if you're standing behind that wall, the enemy will, that rock that's behind me, if you're standing behind that rock, enemies will try to shoot you straight through the rock, because they can technically see you, because the rock isn't a total wall. It doesn't go all the way up to the ceiling. And the side effect of that, or sort of the end result of that, is sort of like a suppressing fire kind of situation. You're standing behind that rock, and there's a ton of enemies that are constantly blasting at you. So as soon as you step out, they're already shooting at you and sending shots your way. If it were a complete wall, you would be safe, and then you come around the corner, and then they'd all wake up and start shooting at you. But if you do it that way with like a rock or a low wall or a ledge or something like that, it puts a little extra pressure on you, and I kind of like it that way. And of course they will slowly approach you if their AI lets them do that. These buildings here, they're all kind of skewed one way or another. This map was made pretty late in Phoenix's development, because like I said, it was made only for the special edition. And a new feature had been added into Wayland, which allows me to rotate the map grid around. And as I said in an earlier video, I'm highly dependent on the grid for the most part. And a big reason for that is being able to properly assign textures in a way that makes sense, because textures are square. Like the wall textures and floor textures, they're all square, and they have square patterns on them for the most part. So when you're on the grid, you can reliably make wall sizes and shapes that agree with the textures. Anyway, I've just kind of twist the grid around a lot here to have a bunch of buildings that are slightly skewed from each other, and you can kind of tell because the floor textures aren't rotated. So it feels skewed, but it still has the rigidity that I kind of like. We got two of the doors down now, and I'm just sort of starting to wrap up this level a little bit. But we're coming up to kind of the last sequence of set pieces here, and probably the most difficult part of the level. I kind of forgot about this part. Boom, yeah, there's a juggernaut way out there. I don't really use I don't use enemy flight on this map to its fullest advantage. There's really not that many defenders on this level, and of course there's this one juggernaut, but that's about it. And it might be something that I missed out on, but I don't know. Everything feels kind of contained to the parts of the map that are sort of above ground, rather than having to fight enemies that are constantly flying in from sort of out in space. Of course, I'm using the strength of that flamethrower there, or the end cannon. Balancing that weapon slot against the other stronger weapons in Phoenix has always been really difficult. Just because the main advantage of the strong weapons like the rocket launcher and the fusion mortar is their area of effect. You're fighting tons of enemies at once most of the time in this game, so a weapon that can hit all of them is very valuable. And the end cannon can't really do that. It sort of can, but not really. But its main advantage now, in its current iteration, is just a strong, accurate, rapid-fire weapon. And this is what I meant about areas that just seem like they're sort of decorative rock walls actually being part of the level. We're kind of on a divider between two other set pieces. So one of the things that I said earlier in this video is that this level's kind of filler, and it's pretty much true. The special edition of Phoenix added another chapter. So the earlier releases of Phoenix had 5 chapters that were 4 levels long each, and the special edition is obviously 6 chapters that are 4 levels long each, plus the expository levels, and then there's more secrets, but 4 main levels in each chapter. And to get those extra 4 levels, I kind of harvested one level and sort of moved in earlier editions of Phoenix, there was like a fork, and you could go to one level or the other level. And now, in this version of the game, you have to do both. And then, that was one level, and then the other 3 levels were kind of shuffled around from one place or another, and then, of course, I had to make 3, this being one of them. It's extremely hypocritical of me, I guess, that I just made this level pretty much to fill space. And I gave the creator of Marathon Eternal, his name is Forrest, I gave him a hard time for doing the same thing. Because in Eternal is 5 chapters long. Each chapter is 10 levels. There's 4 levels that you do, and then it kind of forks off into 2 3-level sections, and you do one or the other. And I gave him a really hard time about it when I did a written commentary on his scenario, because it felt really padded out most of the time. And of course, that's kind of what I'm doing here. So I'm sorry, Forrest. I'm a hack, and a bad critic, and a bad person. But at least, if nothing else, this level's kind of fun. And the mission's done. I did open the 3 big doors. That last switch I just hit opens this door, and you only have a short amount of time to get there. So you have to open up the route. Boom, see, it closes, so it's really tight. That's the end of the level. We're going to move on to the next video, which is the level Something Wicked, one of my favorites. This will be a good one. Thanks for watching.